From multiverse breaking events to timeline shifting anomalies, Gumball plays with the rules of its universe a bunch of times throughout the show, which naturally causes a lot of plot holes to come up. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the biggest plot holes in Gumball history, starting with our first plot hole in the Nobody. In this episode, Gumball and Darwin have been accused by the family of stealing their belongings, but they have no idea what they're talking about. So they decide to go investigating in the house, but can't find anything. They then decide to look for a secret room to try to find an entrance. Eventually, Darwin leans on the side of the stairs, and just like Harry Potter, there's a room underneath the stairs. In fact, there's an entire basement which Rob has been living in for a whole year. Now, this room opens up a bunch of plot holes. Firstly, and most importantly, how did they not know that there was a basement there? They have literally lived in this house for more than a decade, and not once did Richard or Nicole ever think to check if there was a basement or tell their kids about the basement, despite the fact that they bought the house, which means that in the tour of the house, or possibly in the paperwork, they would have explicitly been told that there was a basement. Secondly, how did they not know that Rob was living there the whole time? Unless his footsteps are quieter than a mouse, they should have heard him at least once. They also weren't able to see him snooping around the house for food like a raccoon. There were also multiple points in the show where that basement door should have been opened, most notably in the second episode of the show, where the entire house got flooded. The secret door should have opened at that point, but now the door only opens when the plot is convenient. There's no explanation I can think of as an in-universe explanation as to why they couldn't find the basement, so this is the prime example of a plot hole. However, we're not done with the basement yet, because very recently in season 7, in the episode The Distance, Gumball and Darwin have been getting way too close for comfort. So Nicole splits them up and puts them in different rooms. Gumball gets the bedroom, and Darwin gets the basement. Now, the last time we see the basement, it's in pretty rough condition, but somehow Nicole made the entire room not only livable, but it had a complete glow up. The entire room is refurbished, and there's even a whole aquarium which Darwin can play in. Now, the obvious plot hole here is how could they fit an entire aquarium in the basement in like 15 minutes? But another big plot hole is that after years and years of Gumball and Darwin getting in each other's business, only now does Nicole do something about it. So this basement definitely brings a lot of plot holes. However, let's circle back to Rob, who opens a bunch more plot holes. We first see Rob in the episode The Pony, and here we see Rob as kind of a loser who knows Gumball and Darwin, but they have no idea about him. So this causes quite an awkward reaction where Gumball and Darwin have to try to avoid him, which doesn't work. After this episode, we don't see Rob for a while, but then in the previously mentioned episode The Nobody, we see Rob again, but this time he's in the basement and he's all glitchy for some reason. Eventually, we find out that Rob was in the void before Gumball and Darwin left with Molly. He grabbed onto the van and was able to go back to the normal world, but he was left disfigured. There's no explanation as to why Rob would hide in Gumball and Darwin's house, except for the fact that he has no family. Rob was a perfectly normal person before going into the void, so there's no reason why he couldn't go back to his original family like Molly did. He tries saying that he doesn't remember anything, but he's able to go back to the Wattersons' house and find the basement before either Gumball and Darwin did. Aside from Rob somehow knowing more information about the Wattersons, even though he lost his memory, there are a lot more plot holes in regards to Rob. In the season 8 finale, The Rewrite, Rob does everything he can to try to save Elmore and Gumball, despite the fact that in the X, Rob declares how much he hates Gumball.
I think I really
Say it.
hate you!
So why would he go out of his way to save him? So we have both Rob's memories and motives as massive plot holes. The final plot hole about Rob that we're going to talk about is in the rerun. And in this episode, Gumball defeats Rob, who then has a change of heart, which causes him to go back in time with his magical remote and destroy it to redeem himself. But in the X, Gumball remembers the timeline before Rob turns back time. However, when Gumball went back in time in the disaster, Rob forgets about the timeline before Gumball Gumball reverses time. So how is Gumball able to remember this? There isn't an in-universe explanation, so this classifies as a plot hole. But now let's turn our heads to something we just glossed over, Molly. Molly was in a similar situation as Rob, where she was basically forgotten by the universe and sent to the void.
You're telling me that in a class full of our friends who went to school with her your whole life, not one of you remembers Molly?
However, somehow Gumball and Darwin were about to remember Molly, and they went with Mr. Small to try to find her in the void. When they find Molly, she's in her treehouse and has no recollection of how she even got into the void. Now, you would probably think that after Molly gets out of the void, she would probably try to become more memorable in order to stay out of the void again. But you'd be wrong, because Molly has consistently been the most boring character, even after being saved from the void. So in the episode, Molly tells the entire class a bunch of stories about her life that are so boring that the entire school has to hide from her, so they don't feel guilty about not listening to her stories. Even when Gumball and Darwin conduct the perfect story for Molly to tell, she finds a way to ruin it and make it boring.
Your stories are perfect the way they are.
Oh, good. I hope you would tell me if I was boring. Bless you.
Molly's boringness is further seen in the episode appropriately titled The Boring. In this episode, Molly literally yaps for so long that she can actually stop time. She's so boring that it transcends nature. So why doesn't she end up back in the void? Especially since she was a more interesting character before she went to the void, as we can see in episodes like The Pressure. So ironically, escaping the void of irrelevance only made her more boring. Yet she doesn't go back into the void. Another plot hole about Molly comes from the previously mentioned episode, The Void. At the end of the episode, Gumball, Darwin, and Molly lose their memories about the void, as their tinfoil hats get sucked back into the void.
We must tell everyone before the world tries to make us forget.
But how could we forget something like that?
What were we talking about again?
However, in the episode The Rerun, Gumball seems very familiar with the place and how to traverse the land, as opposed to in the void, where he was taken aback by the place and was unable to move around without hitting a bunch of stuff. How is this possible if he lost all his memories in the void? There is no reason given, so there's a plot hole. But now, we're gonna take a sharp left turn from all the multiversal timeline shenanigans and look at the hobo, named Hobo. We first see him in the episode The DVD, where he steals Gumball and Darwin's money and buys a winning lottery ticket. This brings us to technically the first plot hole in the entire show, because the hobo doesn't even give the money back to Gumball and Darwin. Therefore, he should be rich by the next episode, right? Well, no, because the next time we see the hobo, he is absolutely dirt poor and has nothing despite literally winning the lottery. But this plot hole gets repeated a bunch of times. For example, in the episode The Saint, Gumball tries to break Alan emotionally because he is very annoyed by his positive attitude. Eventually, Gumball gives it up and asks Alan how he's able to stay so cool, and explains that the way he's able to live such a positive and happy life is that he says yes to everything. One of the things that Alan says yes to is giving a homeless man $5.
You know, Gumball, when a man says yes to life, life says yes to him.
Hey kid, do you want to buy this popsicle? I just found it on the sidewalk.
Yes, here's $20.
Now, you probably wouldn't think anything of this act of kindness, but surprisingly, the hobo took the money and was somehow able to start a company. This company became very successful to the point where Alan's $5 is now worth a whole briefcase of money. He seems to be even more successful than he was after winning the lottery. But similarly, in the next episode, we see him lose all his money and end up poor again. But oh no, we're not even done yet. Because in the episode The List, Nicole accidentally gives Gumball and Darwin her dreams list instead of her chores list. The boys are somehow able to achieve her dreams, almost. One of the dreams that Gumball was able to do perfectly was to get rich. After they sold their company of pirate hooks, they became millionaires. They have no idea what to do with the money though, until they see the homeless man who they give all the money to. But yet again, in the next episode, the hobo is still poor. The final episode episode which shows this plot hole was in the app. In this episode, Gumball and Darwin get the app ClickSap, which is basically just TikTok, but it absolutely takes over the minds of the youth like zombies. The boys were trying to save the world when they met the hobo. He explains that he was the founder of ClickSap, who gave up the app after his guilt about the addictive nature. You may think that this is a solid explanation to the state we see him in, but this just raises more questions, like why is he begging for money if he gave up all of his money? And why does he steal money from Gumball and Darwin if he doesn't like getting his money from unethical means? So this hobo is just one massive plot hole. However, now we can fire through some shorter plot holes, like in the episode The Game. In this episode, Gumball and Darwin are cleaning out their room with Nicole when she finds Dodger Dare, the made-up game that Gumball and Darwin made that we've seen throughout the show to that point. But Gumball does not want to play the game and says it's evil before packing it into the trash and throwing it away. But then, for some weird reason, Nicole, Richard, and Anna Yeast dig the game out of the dumpster and then play it despite Gumball and Darwin telling them not to. This creates one massive plot hole because in the episode The 8, Miss Simeon comes to stay at the Wattersons' house, and to make her feel welcome, Gumball and Darwin play Dodger Dare with her. When Miss Simeon picks up the card, she gets a dare about playing a prank on herself, which Gumball forgot was in the deck. So Gumball picks up another card for Miss Simeon, which was also about her, and so was the next, and the next. You get the point. So he stops the game. This is a massive plot hole, because the reason Gumball doesn't want to play Dodger Dare in the game was because once you start, you can't quit. But in the ape, after literally seeing cards about Miss Simeon, he's somehow able to stop the game, despite the fact it literally says you can't quit the game. But this isn't the only plot hole in the episode.
Let's just pack it away.
No, you can't stop! Once you start Dodger Dare, it has to be finished.
Because when Gumball, Darwin, and Nicole are cleaning out the room, they find a skeleton of a dead fish, which Nicole says is Darwin the First. They thought that Darwin the First went to the ocean, but Gumball and Nicole have clearly been lying to him. This creates a bunch of plot holes, mostly stemming from the episode's origins. In this episode, we see Gumball meets Darwin, but before he does, we see Gumball meeting all the Darwins before the main Darwin. The other plot hole that comes from Darwin's origins comes in the episode The Party. In this episode, Gumball and Darwin go to Rachel's party, which at first was calm and nice, but eventually turns into havoc after Miss Simeon and Principal Brown comes in. Eventually, Darwin goes outside and meets Rachel, and when he introduces himself, he says that he's Darwin Watterson III.
What's your name?
Darwin, Raglan, Caspian, Ahab, Poseidon, Nicodemus, Watterson III.
However, in the origins, Darwin is far from the third, so I have no idea where the third comes from. But finally, I think there's no better way to end this video than by looking at the plot holes that stem from the episode The Finale. In this episode, Gumball and the family get served with legal papers for all the stuff that happened in episodes prior, like Hector destroying the town, Gumball torturing his teachers, and just so much destruction of property. They spend the entire episode trying to make up for all their wrongdoings in order to get the lawsuits lifted from them, but it only ends up in even worse consequences for the family, as they get shoved into prison. Eventually, they realize that the only way to get out of this is to make things even worse. Sure, they absolutely destroy the entire town and get everybody to turn against them and chase them to the house, where the mob breaks open the window and are literally about to kill the Wattersons. But then Gumball says,
The only thing that can save us is reality being completely reset by some kind of magic device!
and then the credits roll. The implication is that the credits will reset the entire universe, and no events that happen in the episode will matter because it'll all get reset by the end. This creates so many problems and plot holes. Like, even in this episode, the legal papers that the Wattersons get from their actions in previous episodes shouldn't happen, because by the logic of the universe resetting after the credits, so the events from the other episode should be erased. And so the Wattersons' actions technically didn't happen. But there are a bunch more plot holes that arise due to this, like Gumball becoming Penny's boyfriend in the shell. Technically, Gumball shouldn't be her boyfriend after this episode, because all the events that happened in that episode should be erased. This also goes against a lot of episodes with Rob with it, like in the rerun, the Nemesis, and the X, because all these episodes are follow-ups of previous episodes, which should have been erased due to the credits. But if I missed any plot holes, make sure to comment them down below. And while you're down there, make sure to subscribe and click on the video on screen. I'm sure you'll love it.